Hey, moron! Hey, moron! Duh! Look at me! I'm the waterboard, dude!
Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, and of course we have the Funky Chicken. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great day. It is finally freaking Friday, and it's going to be a busy one here for me today, but we were getting ready for the weekend, and of course, finishing off Monday night with the Dallas Cowboys going against the Cincinnati Bengals, and that is going to be huge for us. This will basically determine what's going to happen going forward for the rest of the season. If they lose, you can pretty much say that playoff hopes are out. You might actually want to say that from here on out, the Cowboys are in the playoffs because every week is a playoff game for them. Yeah, we can say, seriously. Basically, if the Cowboys lose a game, their playoff hopes are done. This is sudden death. So we're talking about playoffs. Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs. Yes, that's right. And you can go ahead and call me crazy here, but the Cowboys right now are in the playoffs because they must win every single one. You know, it's going to be interesting. This offseason is going to be crazy, to say the least. It really is, because there's so much uncertainty. You know, what are we going to do? Well, at least we got CD and Dak Prescott's contracts out of the way, so we know that that's going to be the case. Some interesting moving parts that are out here. We've heard, from the talking heads, and this is the thing that always is funny to me. We always hear about people that are going to be linked to the Cowboys and are going to be here. Seriously. I remember when we used to hear that, Cowboys are interested in Derek Carr, the Cowboys should let Dak Prescott walk and Derek Carr was going to be here. I remember when Russell Wilson was talking about places he'd like to play. We're at Dallas, and we had that. We had, guys like Jamal Adams, okay. Sean Payton rumors that the Cowboys are going to hire Sean Payton and Urban Meyer. So we're constantly linked to everybody. And the funny thing is all these people that we're linked to, I very few of them do they actually come through here. We were linked to Von Miller. We were linked to Hopkins. We were linked to Derrick Henry. We were linked to Odell Beckham Jr. Funny, none of those guys ever made it here. About the only guy I can think of offhand that we've been linked to that actually happened was Anthony Barr. Oh, no, Linval Joseph. I'm sorry. Linval Joseph was another one that we were linked to that kind of came through. But those were minor in the grand scheme of things. So understand that, all of the talk of, this guy, that guy, and everything else is because people listen. And so, we've heard about Bill Belichick, of course, Jerry Jones. He ends up setting this stuff up, too, where he starts talking about people left and right, like Jason Witten. He'll make a great coach, or, he'll talk about Kingsbury. And literally everybody is bated breath on everything Jerry Jones says. They will go through and say, well, Jerry Jones said, and so on, and here we go. It just starts running right on off. So be careful what you hear, okay? So it's generally like, for coaches especially, it's a brand new flavor in your ear. Everybody's doing, who should be the next coach? Should Mike McCarthy come back and all that? In the grand scheme of things, I think it's going to end up being Mike McCarthy. Because when you start thinking about some of these situations, you look at it and say, does it really make sense? Is it really an improvement? Because ultimately, getting rid of Mike McCarthy is getting something that will be better. You don't want to get something that's going to be worse. When you trade in your car, you're not looking to get a car that's going to break down even more. You're looking for a car that's going to be more reliable. And everything that glitters isn't always gold. So I was sitting here. This was Anthony in Sports that's kind of going through possible coaching candidates, okay, that could be here for the Cowboys. So this is what they're talking about this morning. And one of the coaches were told via an NFL source will get consideration for the job at the Star in 2025 is Robert Saleh. Now, maybe there's some revisionist history because getting rid of him, you still have the problem. The problem really appears to be Aaron Rodgers, another guy who we've been linked to, another guy that, even right now, people have said, why don't we sign Aaron Rodgers, and get him to play the rest of the season? Okay, that'll really work. That consideration could be as a head coach where Saleh did not experience success in his 3 years with the Jets, you think? Where he posted a 20-36 record. Or it could be as a defensive coordinator, a role in which he was outstanding in his 4 years in San Francisco. Okay, so let me dissect this in my small brain, my lizard brain here. You look at the Dallas Cowboys in the way they run their situation, okay? As far as free agency and bringing in talent. One thing you can say about the Jets is they constantly try to bring in talent. And you can look at it and say, they brought in Aaron Rodgers. They brought in receivers. They were constantly bringing in, they bring Hassan Reddick. They were signing big-name players. And I believe the Commanders and the Jets brought in more free agents than anybody else over the last 10 years. So you can't say that he wasn't given pieces to work with, okay? Pieces to work with. And it seemed like it didn't matter. I believe they have the longest playoff drought in the NFL right now. 20-36 record. So let me see if I get this straight. You have Mike McCarthy, who had 3 12-win seasons, almost made the playoffs in a season that he lost Dak Prescott, his first year here, after having the Cowboys' worst defense in their history. We're still kind of talking about playoffs, having lost our quarterback and having lost 9 starters from last year, having more injuries. And mind you, Cowboys are third in the number of games missed by starters on the list. Third, okay? San Francisco's right up there with us, and I can't remember who else is, but we've been hit by the injury bug terribly. But hasn't lost the team yet. So your thought is, let's fire Mike McCarthy and hire a coach who was an utter disaster. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? We've seen guys that have been great coordinators that suck as head coaches. They suck as head coaches. Okay, so then the other thought here is you hire him to be your defensive coordinator. Okay. So you can't argue with what he's done with defenses as a defense coordinator. I could understand that one. That would make some sense when you say we're going to get an all-star coaching staff. But at the moment, you just changed defensive coordinators to Mike Zimmer. And you saw the learning curve that we had changing the philosophy of the defense. And now here, since about mid-season, you're seeing him start to get back some players, and you're now seeing the team being led by the defense and saying, wow, even though we've lost like 5 starters from this year's team, even though we lost like 5 starters off last year's team, you're beginning to see a defense with limited players and constantly having turnover because of injuries playing really well and helping you get back into the playoff conversation. So you say, let's fire that and let's start over again. Do I have that correct? Here's how I might say, okay. I might say you bring in Robert Saleh if you're going to make Mike Zimmer the head coach. Is that a crazy idea? If you've just decided we're moving on from Mike McCarthy, and you do like Robert Saleh, well, maybe you bring him in, who then is under Mike Zimmer as the head coach. But then, of course, you need a new offensive coordinator, which you may end up needing anyway. You may need somebody who's a little bit more dynamic than Mike McCarthy is. Although I will say that not all of the problems are Mike McCarthy, because Mike McCarthy, what you have to understand is, when you think about Green Bay, what they had was they had a capable running game. It wasn't predicated on the run, but he had a multitude of weapons. When they won the Super Bowl, they had Donald Driver, they had Greg Jennings, they had Jordy Nelson, they had I think Robert Quinn. Robert Cobb. You had 4 capable wide receivers, not just one. And you had you had John Kuhn, fullback, who could get you your short yardage and things like that and could catch the football. They were able to spread the ball around. You can't look at what we have out here this year and say that's comparable to what Mike McCarthy's had. So I don't know that the offense is all Mike McCarthy and it's antiquated as much as it is not having the players that he needs. So that's where I go with that one. The Cowboys, it looks like Jake Ferguson is going to be back and ready to roll. CeeDee Lamb is still dealing with the AC joint in his shoulder. Didn't practice yesterday, but will be suiting up on Monday night for the game. Diggs is limited, but practicing and should be there. We're definitely going to need him with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has been fantastic this year, even though the rest of the team around him has been ass. Joe Burrow, 30 TDs and 5 interceptions. If they were on a good team, he would be a MVP candidate. But unfortunately, the team is just not good around him. So those are the thoughts I have for this morning. Now, and back to Mike Zimmer and the thought of saying, let's get a new coach for them. You know, we all want and expect every year that we're just going to be good. No matter what the players, no matter what the front office does, no matter what the injuries, they just want to see a winner. And sometimes it's just not set up to be there. So when you think about Mike Zimmer, who started out, he lost Dorrance Armstrong. Okay, from our defense, we lost Dorrance Armstrong. Okay, we lost Dante Fowler. Okay, between the two of them, you had about 14 sacks. They lost Jonathan Hankins, interior defensive lineman, stud. They lost the Canadian bulldozer, Neville Gallimore, and Leighton Vander Esch. And then you also say they didn't bring back Stephon Gilmore for the secondary. So, and then you got a Diggs that's coming back from injury. Deron Bland just recently started playing. And you took a guy who people thought was a bust and was completely lost when you walked in the door, in Mozzie Smith, who didn't give you really anything last year, is your main defensive tackle. So when you start thinking about that, the only thing you added to help all of those losses was Eric Kendricks. Oh, and also you had Micah Parsons hurt for 5 games, and you also lost D-Law. But now all of a sudden you see the defense starting to play good. Do you really want to say, scrap this philosophy that we have, scrap this coaching staff that we have right here? Because Al Harris has seemingly been the D-back whisperer. I don't think you really want to mess with that. And I can also say, this is insane when you think about this. Marshawn Needland has been missing, which is a guy you depended on because of injuries. D-Law has been out. Sam Williams. I don't even know how they field a team at some point. I honestly don't. But yet, they're still playing and playing hard. So I don't know that you really want to mess with that situation and start over again, knowing that there's going to be a new learning curve with the new defensive coordinator, new philosophy, a difference in players, and so on. I think the better thing for the Cowboys is supplement what you have, maximize the talent you have, get another guy on the other side, so that way when Micah Parsons is rushing, they have to worry about him as well. You know, A.J. Brown is a great receiver, but because Saquon Barkley is running so well, he's getting more one-on-one coverage where he's going to beat a guy. If he's getting double teamed every time, he's not having the same amount of catches. And that needs to be the philosophy for the Cowboys going forward. So let's finish them with our good old ESPN talking about Mike McCarthy being finished in Dallas.
One more for you, J-Mac. Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, make up or break up?
You're in a toxic relationship. It's time to get out of it. I am going with a breakup on this one. You don't want to stay in there where she's not treating you right. You have to move on. And for Mike McCarthy, it is time for both sides. We heard Dak. He offered his thing. I love Mike McCarthy. Want him to back. Want him to have more say. The way the Dallas Cowboys season has gone from last year in that playoff loss to what we've seen this year, you just can't run it back.
Well, let's actually play you what he's talking about, because Dak's comments were fascinating. Not only did he support Mike McCarthy in this interview, but listen to the specificity that he gets into. This was Dak.
I believe in him wholeheartedly. I think he definitely deserves a chance, another contract, and a chance to coach this team amongst and kind of, I guess you could say, more influence on his terms. Maybe be a good way to say it. But I wholeheartedly believe in him.
That was fascinating to me on two different fronts. That he's supporting his coach, you would expect that, right? What's he going to say? McCarthy's.
But he does love him. He does love him.
And he loves him, and that's fine. But listen to what he's saying. Let him stay and have more influence
on his terms. On his terms.
What did you make of that?
Well, that means that Mike McCarthy probably hasn't had as much say on the roster and the players that he has in there as other coaches around the league do. And so Dak says Mike McCarthy should have more influence on his terms. So clearly he'd like him to stay. He'd like him to have more input, more say. His contract's up after this year. We'll see what the Jones family has to say about that.
Why would Mike McCarthy want to go back?
Because he wants to be the head coach of an NFL team.
Sure. The rosters, you're not going to win. The roster is below average. This isn't a one-off season rebuild in Dallas with the roster makeup. So I understand the point. Yes, there is the reality. You get to be the head coach of an NFL team, and it's the Cowboys. You're not going to win. The roster is a below-average roster.
Well, there's two different pieces of this. There's whether he brings him back. There's what the roster is. That's a conversation that we'll have as we go. And to his credit, that team seems to be fighting. We've seen a lot of other teams that look like they're completely falling apart and unraveling. They're not. I took what Dak was saying, at least in some part, to be, you know what else we need? We need to let the coach be in charge of telling guys to shut up in here, and in charge of telling guys, you want to have a podcast? Stop listing the top 10 quarterbacks in the league and not putting ours on it. Stop letting, family members be posting on Facebook that our receiver would be better off playing with a different quarterback. I'm saying, actually have control of the situation instead of looking over the coach's shoulder at somebody else.
So if you want that type of coach, then you go get Bill Belichick.
That's what I'm saying.
Those are the two guys who have that mindset. Mike Vrabel. Those two guys have that mindset. That is not Mike McCarthy, in my opinion. And if Mike McCarthy comes back as the Dallas Cowboys head coach, in my mind, it's because Jerry Jones continuously wants to be the voice and the loudest person in the room at all points.
All right, so you think about it. Jerry Jones sits down and has a meeting with Bill Belichick. We talked about it, Chef. You said it, and after every Cowboys game, Jerry Jones does his press conference before anybody else talks. Belichick says to Jerry Jones, if I'm the head coach, there's no way in hell we're continuing that tradition. You think Jerry's going to say, you know what, Bill, you're right. Let me go ahead and step aside and let you just now run everything, something I've been doing for the past however many years? That, to me, is the issue when we bring up Bill Belichick and the Dallas Cowboys.
But it may just be that Jerry wants to win badly enough that he's willing to forego that. Or it may be that Bill wants to coach badly enough that he's willing to put up with Jerry talking. I'm just telling you. Bill wants to coach, and Jerry wants to win. So somehow, if that's what both men want, you figure out a way to get that done and make it work.
You played for Belichick. Could you see, you know him in a different way?
There's no way I can see Bill going up to a press conference, and the first question he has to answer was what the owner just said about the game that was just played 5 minutes ago.
I get
before
that.
He can talk about that.
I get that. Here's the only thing else. Of course. What you're saying makes all the sense in the world. There is one little part of me, maybe because I'm just rooting for it so much to happen because I'm in the interesting business, and what could be more interesting than Bill Belichick and Jerry Jones running the Dallas Cowboys? That maybe Bill is the one guy, he doesn't want to talk about anything anyway. So let the owner do all the talking to the media. So long as I have control of my team, so long as I'm the one who's in charge of that locker room, so long as I'm the one the
You
players
just figured it out, Greeny.
Yeah, but that's
a good solution.
Is that going to
that's
happen?
the part. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing Jerry would have to give up. I don't know that it's as much about what he says to the press after the game is over as it is Bill being able to control, whatever the word is, patrol, be in charge of his locker room, be in charge of maintaining some sort of order and discipline in a place where it feels that has been sorely lacking, at least in part because everyone looks over the coach's shoulder.
Okay, but here's the issue with this marriage. The problem with Jerry is the roster is falling apart talent-wise, right? The problem at the end of the time with Bill Belichick in New England was the roster fell apart. So who do you trust to build the roster?
Well, Jerry's going to continue to build the roster.
So then it ain't going to work.
You're telling me Bill Belichick couldn't go in there and win with the parts that they have there? This is a team that's 1 year removed away from winning 12 games.
I don't believe the roster is good enough in the NFC, no.
They're going to need more,
I just feel like
more
they
parts.
need change. And I think for Jerry Jones and this Dallas Cowboys organization, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Comfortability drives complacency, in my opinion. And that's exactly where this organization is right now and where they stand.
The one thing I will say, if you do add a guy like Bill Belichick, that obviously we know his proven record of winning. When you talk about free agents and what they did in New England with Brady as the quarterback, where you had veterans that was signed to New England for less money with the thought of we have a chance to win.
Sure.
So maybe if you have a guy like Bill Belichick, there are some of those veterans that you're saying, hey, we're missing a piece here or there, that you get the right guy in the situation to want to come play for the Dallas Cowboys with the belief that, hey, we have a chance to win with a healthy Dak Prescott.
Who's he bringing with his
no
offense?
state income tax.
Josh McDaniels.
No state income tax. That's a luxury.
You just asked the question, who would he bring as his staff? I mean, none of the guys
That matters.
yeah, but they're all available. I mean, Josh McDaniels was a great offensive coordinator. Our perception of him has been skewed by his lack of success as a head coach.
Agree.
All of Belichick's assistants, unfortunately, have not, for the most
Sucked,
part, gone
except
on
for
to great
Vrabel.
success as head coaches. But they were all great assistants, and most of them are available.
Bill Belichick Bill Belichick is great. This will still be a bottom 5 roster in the NFC next year, unless they work some absolutely ridiculous magic. The talent has left the building. That's one of the reasons why they were so poor this year. That's one of the reasons why when people are saying, yeah, they'll be the 3 or 4 seed in the playoffs, what are you talking about? They don't have enough talent on the football team right now.
Okay,
And Dan,
we'll leave that there for the
Dan Orlowski knows about not having talent. So there you have it. Now, here's the thing I will say about, them saying that they need to be feeling uncomfortable. I thought that's what we did this offseason by literally not having a coach under contract, and none of the staff. I thought that's what they did with the players, waiting to the last minute to get them contracts. Clearly, that didn't work. Alrighty, good people. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I will see you soon. Peace.